Steve Zemke. I'm on the Seattle Urban Forestry Commission, also Chair of Tree Pack and Friends for Seattle Urban Forest. My question is going to be a tough one, very direct. The question is, have you been reborn? And that is reborn on urban forests, protecting the urban forests in the city for 4 years under your administration. No ordinance was passed. In fact, the DPD under your administration basically said we didn't need a stronger tree ordinance. We just needed incentives and education. That's not working. Other cities have much stronger ordinances, including requiring permits to take out trees, notice, and tree replacement. Again, have you been reborn, or are you the same Mike McGinn?
Well, I'm obviously, I think I'm a little older and wiser. I think I'm a little more humble. That's, being mayor would do that to you. I'd beat up a fair bit. But I will say this. We did, even though it was the recession, we put a lot of money into preserving our green belts. And we kept and maintained the Green Seattle Partnership during that time, which was getting the ivy out of all the green belts. You're right, we did come up with a proposal. And what you're saying is that not good enough and we need to revisit it, and we'd be happy to revisit it and engage with the Urban Forestry Commission again on that question.
Yes, Mayor Mike, you remember me?
I do remember you, Mike.
Yeah, my point is, what are you going to do about the Americans with Disability Act not being enforced, the Fair Housing Act of 1968 that was amended in 1988, that's not being enforced. And 59.1802, all rights and remedies obligation imposed in good faith, that where we are not being treated fairly, Mike McGinn, and I'm going back to 2005, 144 deaths.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah.
What you gonna do?
You know, Michael, you've shared with me your documents, and I have reviewed them all when you have shared them with me. And I appreciate that we have this dialogue, and I know there's more work to be done. So there's a lot of questions in there, and I'm not sure which one you want me to hit, but I do take seriously our relationship.
Another year too.
I take it all seriously.
Yeah, so do I. I like seeing you, Michael.
Look at our veterans sleeping on the streets, Mike McGinn.
No, okay,
It's
let's talk.
sickening.
It is sickening. It is sickening. So we'll go right there. We'll go right there. This would be my highest priority coming into office, would just be, when I talked about reviewing the budget and finding dollars, one of the things, let's talk about homelessness for a second. The city is doing some things that are moving people out of homelessness. More people are moving into homelessness than are moving out. The problem's growing faster than solutions are being offered. And this is, I know all the candidates are going to come in and say, well, this policy or that policy, we need rapid rehousing, and we need all-day shelters, or we need, more drug treatment or more mental health treatment. All of those things are right. But if the answer was simply having, the right policy answer, we would have been there earlier. Because, I've been there, and let me share with you how it works. When you go in there to try to get the money over there, everybody else who's got a stake in the budget has already, they're holding their ground. And the council is a little nervous about trying to figure out how to get that, they're a little nervous about all the donors and all the interests. What will happen if they move that money? And, I had to do it. 67 million in cuts in my first year, and it was hard. But I think we have a crisis that deserves that same type of focus. And what I would want to do is go into the budget, find the money, and that's on the policy, that's on the money side. And on the policy side, let's have some determination to just push through and provide shelter for everyone that needs it. It's going to be challenging. Neighborhoods are getting concerned about encampments or safe injection sites or new shelters. But what we're doing now with people sleeping on the streets, in our parks, is unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. There should be a safe and secure place for everyone to go at night. And trust me, I'm going to go into that hard, and I'm the only candidate who can do that with the experience of having been in that office before and understanding the obstacles that anybody who gets in there will face. It's not just a policy change.
Next question.
Yes, Ms. Bouchard here. What I wanted to say to you is honesty is the best policy. When you speak about policy and you have come back again, I don't know if they say third time is a charm, so So anyway, my concern is that I have been using the 7th floor for the most part of my life. This time, with this mayor, I don't think I ever came to the 7th floor when you were there, okay? And so that means that that race and social justice thing is not working, okay? And I'm wondering, what are you gonna do in that area? Race and social justice initiative is in place right now with the city of Seattle. And the only reason why I'm up there on Murray's floor right now is because it's not working, okay? So that's, you can answer that. Just take it, you know.
Just go.
Give it what you, hit it with your best shot.
Racism is real. I mean, I got inside the system a little bit. You know, I got to see how the system works.
Quiet.
And the phrase, and institutional racism is real. And the institution, the reason we call it institutional is because the institutions are strong. It is so deeply embedded. And, you know, I went to expand the Seattle Youth Violence Prevention Initiative to 18 to 24-year-olds when I was mayor. Because why would you just say someone's 18, they're ready to move on? And that was blocked by the city council. They said there wasn't enough data. I went to expand Career Bridge. It was a new program that was dealing with felons returning to the community, right? They need the help, right? Like, give somebody housing, start connecting to a job in a community. You know, all of us will be safer. And we can start mending these communities we've torn apart. That was blocked by the city council. Where's the data? Yet at the same time, without any examination whatsoever, the city council was committing us to literally hundreds of millions of dollars for a magnificent new waterfront. You know, so if you want to understand, you know, go into the mayor, spend more time on the 7th floor. The more you look, the more you'll see. So I think that just every decision we make has to confront the embedded institutional racism in our system. And it's uncomfortable for us to do it, but every decision we make has to be there, and I'll just do my best, and you tell me when I'm messing up, and I'll try to listen.
I'm Dennis Saxman from Capitol Hill. You said you're older and wiser.
I hope so.
Talk is cheap, Mike. Give me one example where you have opposed recently pro-growth machine in the city on behalf of the neighborhoods, where you have spoken out on behalf of neighborhoods against the growth machine that runs this city for its own profit.
Yeah. Well, you know, one, I don't think you're going to hear any candidate who came out with the tax plan that I just laid out, right? That I am prepared to tax the big successful companies with taxes we already have. I mean, I support an income tax, by the way, and I promoted it in my announcement, and there was a great coalition that had done the work that meant that the city council would push it through. But there's a real question about legality. What I haven't heard any other candidate say yet is, will they support something called the employee hours tax? You don't have to pass a ballot measure, they can pass it right now. Redmond charges $109 for every employee in Redmond, and they do that because they have Microsoft there. We could do that for big corporations, exempt small corporations, and doing something like that would raise probably 30 to 40 million a year. As an example, instead of always turning to sales taxes or property taxes. So that's you gotta understand something, Dennis. I know you feel I'm the pro-growth guy, but, and we know each other. And Dennis and I used to do a thing where I'd ask the audience who's ever sued a development in their neighborhood, and Dennis and I would be the only ones to raise our hands. You know, that's what I did at the Greenwood Community Council.
But you haven't answered the question about development.
Well, I think that if we're taxing them, we can pay for, that's one of the things we can use to pay for affordable housing. And to get to your question on development, and I'll be clear, I support more housing in the city. I do think we need to build more housing. And I think we need to do so for equity reasons. I think we need to do so for environmental reasons. And so, you know, we're in different positions. Dennis and I may be in different positions on that. You and I may be in different positions on that, but I do support it. And I don't want to disguise that. But it's not surprising that the Chamber of Commerce has spent untold amounts of money in both of my campaigns against me. And, you know, and who's the Chamber of Commerce, right? They're the people who are really benefiting from this growth. And the reason they spend money against me is because I don't care how rich they are. You know, I'm prepared to stand up and fight them, and I lose, but I also do believe in more housing, but I believe we have to have a dialogue with communities about how we get there, and involve everyone in that dialogue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tim Bozer. I'm a member of Lake City Neighborhood Alliance, Park and Community Center Committee. And Lake City Neighborhood Alliance is sponsoring a petition to encourage our existing Park District commissioners, who are 9 elected city council people, to address a major deficit in the current park spending plan dealing with aging park facilities. There's just not enough money. Best example of that, a consultant study was done in community centers. 2 community centers were identified to be replaced. There's no money to replace those centers. We are proposing a solution, and that is to maintain the current assessment for this year at 27.5 cents through the remaining 3 years. If they do that, they'll generate $26 million that could be used to create this dedicated line item to deal with aging park facilities. So the question is, if you become the mayor, would you be willing to work with the current mayor and the current council members to take action now rather than later?
Yeah, I actually, mentioned the privatization of Green Lake, which has been on the table, I think is wrong. You know, we looked at that when we were building Rainier Beach Community Center. That was put on the table by the Parks Department. And when we looked at it, you just can't manage a community center with a private partner, even a good faith nonprofit partner, and still meet our public goals. So we ended up taking that off the table. I think the city should take it off the table. I looked at the long-range plan on maintenance. I believe the number was $67 million when you look at all the unmet maintenance needs in our facilities. That's a number that's within reach for a capital budget. You know, if you can choose priorities, as we mentioned earlier, if you can choose priority, that's a number that's within reach. So whether it takes a continuation, I didn't quite track the continuation of the existing levy. I'll look at that. But I certainly believe that that's within reach and something we can do with existing resources if we prioritize, and we'll be happy to work on that.
Hi, Mike. Sarah
Sarah
Jane
Jane.
Siegfried from Lake City. We've asked all the candidates about livability, and everybody has a different definition, and probably everyone in the city has a different definition. Would you support a citywide process through the neighborhoods of coming up with 5 or 6 actual measurable goals of livability? In other words, the city really needs to agree on what this thing is so we can set out to achieve some of those ends. Would you support that, and would you put that in your plan from now on?
I like that idea. Yeah, one of the things I've spoken about is I would really like to when I talk about talking to communities, I'll just share my thinking about this. I thought it was tremendously disrespectful to end the district councils and in the way they did. I served on the Northwest District Council for years. And we argued there was diversity of opinion. You know, Faye Carnot didn't want bus lanes on Aurora. I did want bus lanes on Aurora. You know, but I also recognize that the district councils aren't necessarily as diverse as we want them to. And that was true of the district council I was on, that was true of the community council that I led. I think we need to bring back that type of input, which is ongoing with neighborhood leaders from as many different places as possible, which is staffed from the city, so that you have lines of communication open. I also think we need kind of a broad-based, more intensive process, which brings in as many people as possible over a short period of time. And that's something I'd like to launch when I take office, because I want to have a broad public dialogue about how do we deal with housing growth and how do we identify the investments we need in neighborhoods. So your idea of coming up with a metric around what are we trying to achieve, I think fits within that. So I like the idea.
Reality of fascism, yeah, you're right.
Quiet. Hi, Mike. My name is Ruby Holland. I lived in our family home since 1963 at the CD. How would you help me stay in my home with this Hala invasion, as well as other people in the CD, where displacement's supposed to be high, and as well as people in other neighborhoods who have worked hard, played by the rules, love their homes, and quite frankly have no place else to go? How would you help us stay in our home?
And what is the, if I may, what is the pressure? What is the thing that you feel would force you out, the specific things? Is it the taxes or the zoning?
I think it's with the tax thing. The taxes will definitely go up. And I've seen areas where these apartments are all over the place, and it is bad, ugly, and it's just not livable. But I think basically the taxes is my concern.
Yeah, yeah, and I've heard this from a lot of people as well, and that's one of the reasons. And I wasn't, you know, that wasn't where I was a few years ago. I mean, you know, as mayor, we put out a property tax levy, for example, to fund the, you know, get library hours back. And the parks levy I supported was a property tax levy. But it just feels like we've had one after the other here, and we just have to stop, and we have to have the courage to, as I said, tax the big corporations or tax the incomes of the wealthy. We can tax the big corporations, we have the authority right now, we just don't have the political will, and we can use that to invest, you know, in neighborhoods and invest in the things that neighborhoods need, I believe. And if an income tax on the wealthy works, that's that too. And part of the reason I think we need to overline our property taxes is because of the things you're telling me, which is, you know, you may get forced out of the city, and that's not right.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike. Cindy Barker from the Neighborhood Planning and Land Use Committee, still with the CNC. Under your administration, funding to the Department of Neighborhoods and Neighborhood Planning was cut in larger proportion to the other departments in reaction to recession. But as a direct result, 13 neighborhoods have still not had their neighborhood plans reviewed and updated, 23 years after they were originally adopted. We think that the MHA discussions might have gone easier if some of those neighborhoods had actually been into their plans and had a chance to recast their future. So what will your administration do to rectify that?
Yeah. So, and this gets to some of the things we were saying earlier. It is true that during the recession we had to make cuts, and the cuts were to, you know, we did make cuts to the number of neighborhood representatives into DON. We had really, really hard choices then. I hope people appreciate that. We also, as I said, we had done full neighborhood plans in Rainier Beach and up in the, you know, Broadview, Bitter Lake neighborhoods. And the length of time and the costs associated with us said that let's focus. What we tried to do then was, you know, we started a Ballard urban framework.
Yep.
We did a U-District urban framework. We tried to go in and have a dialogue that was a bottom-up dialogue that was more in hot spots, because I just didn't know how we could afford all 13 then. I think it's time to revisit how we have a broad dialogue, you know, that revisits those questions about what is it that you really want in each neighborhood. Again, I go back to where we were when I first got involved, and I agree with you, it's been too long, and people feel like they aren't being heard. And that's what I was trying to say to Sarah Jane as well. How do we launch an inclusive way to hear from people in neighborhoods?
What are you going to propose to do that? And it's something that doesn't take more than 2 full next terms. 23 years, some of those plans have been sitting there, and they are clearly outdated.
Well, I think we need to figure out, that's the challenge, is how do you go into a community and update that plan without making each one a 1 or 2 year process? That's what I want to figure out. I want to figure that out.
Figure it out on your campaign statement, not after you get in office.
Well, sometimes it's nice to talk to people and ask people. I mean, I want to be really clear about this. I mean, I know these races are run if everybody comes in and what's your answer to every question?
Let's go back to the impact
Yeah.
recommendations that you don't.
Yeah, no, but I mean, seriously, we can come in, I can come in here, and I know all the candidates come in here and say they have every answer. You know, that's like kind of what campaigns do to people. That's not actually how, I know, but that's not actually how governance works. Because when you get into office, if you think you have all the answers, you're going to make mistakes.
So Mike,
if you're willing to come, let me finish my sentence. If you're going to come in, I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, how do we update it? I think you want a say in that, and you're going to have a say in that.
But I am playing off of, you said that you said you've learned lessons. And this is a lesson I thought you would have learned on and reflected, and I thought that was a softball question.
I want to update those plans, but I know from reality that if we update them the old way we did it, it's not going to work. So we have to have a conversation about how we do it effectively and efficiently. And, you know, that will take a little work, and I want to come up with that answer with you, not me dictating from the top. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
My name is Pat Griffith, and I'm going to change the subject to education, and I live on McGinn, incidentally. This current administration seems to be wanting to seize more control of education, and I'd like to know your thoughts on the relationship between the school board, which is a legal authority, and the city and how the city and the school board can work together more productively. And I'm speaking a little bit of my own neighborhood where we have a 58-unit townhouse complex coming into the Seattle Children's Home. There is not one unit of affordable housing, and by approving that, we're pushing out kids to be bused to other neighborhoods.
Yeah, I'm sorry, could you repeat the last part of your question?
Oh, I was just giving an example.
Of the no affordable housing, where was that?
Right,
Where was
this
that
is on
again?
the Seattle Children's
Campus.
campus, and when it was proposed 2
Yeah.
years ago, it was,
Yeah.
the bottom price was $650,000, and we're going to be going through construction out for the neighborhood for the next 2 years.
You know, when I ran the first time, I talked about governance, and one of the things I learned from the process was that it's not the mayor's job to talk about how the school district should be governed. You know, if the public wants a change, they're going to have to bring that up. It shouldn't be coming from the mayor's office. I do think that the city can partner, and we work to partner. When I was in office, like I mentioned earlier, the Youth and Family Initiative, we ended up hiring people from different communities, ethnic communities. We hired translators. We brought over 3,000 people into that process to tell us, and we asked one question: what do you need for your kids to succeed? And parents know that answer, so we weren't trying to dictate from the top, this is what we need to do to make schools better. And I think a lot of that goes on right now in the school system. There's a lot of, better off interests that, we have the answer to schools, we'll get the mayor to leverage that out of the school district by how we manage the money. And I prefer a bottom-up system, and what we got out of that was we got recommendations that we wouldn't have come up with. We opened health centers in all the high schools and in the middle schools. In many of the middle schools, we got a visiting dentist program. We heard from people about things that are outside of school, so we did more work on the summer lunch programs and things like that. We did an attendance campaign to help encourage kids to get into school. I think there's a vast array of things you can do if you listen to the public and if you partner with the school district. The city is involved in so many different things that affects the health of children and families that you just need to figure out how to partner on each one and effectively manage your resources to do that.
Hi, my name is Manny Atkins. I live in Queen Anne, and you talked before about top-down decision-making. Earlier this year, Mayor Ed Murray tried to put together a property tax in the city, and I believe there were zero discussions, zero public meetings about it until the program was scuttled in favor of hopefully something next year. I think homelessness is one of the most important issues in our city, but there's not a lot of people to talk about it with. In neighborhoods, people are, it's not just people that are for it or against it, but people that have questions, people that would like to talk more about it, understand it more, see how neighborhoods can help out homelessness, in the homelessness crisis. And I was wondering, if you're elected mayor, would you be willing to go into neighborhoods and not just talk about a specific shelter or encampment or anything, but really sit down with people, listen to their concerns and thoughts and ideas, and talk with them about it? And could you give some examples of how you would do this?
Yeah. So the answer is yes, and you actually raise a really good point, because I need to think about how we have a public dialogue about an aggressive homelessness response if it's going to succeed. Because I think we need to have a public dialogue about it. Because people do have very different opinions about what the right answers are, and people need to be heard. I'm really comfortable, and I did it as mayor. I think I had like 100 town halls. A lot of them where I just did what we're doing right here. Yeah, and Alex showed up at almost every one. I think I gave him the first question on almost every one. And I just showed up and I took the answer, I took the questions. The other thing was I brought department heads with me to listen. And some of them were along the lines of the Youth and Family Initiative, where we really put resources into making sure we were getting very diverse representation. And then that would lead to further dialogue, like we did one we called Safe Communities, in which we did that with police departments. Other times it was just, the people who showed up, like today. I'll just show up and talk to the people who show up and take questions. So that would be it. But I think you asked a deeper question, which was, I heard a deeper question, which is how do we structure a public dialogue so that there's greater public acceptance of whatever the policy answers we come up with around homelessness. And I think that's a good question.
$300 million, guys. $300 million. Yes, sir.
I appreciate that you support town hall style meetings because this administration does not like town hall style meetings. They have done absolutely everything that they can to cut the voice of the neighborhoods, the individuals who live in the neighborhoods. It is absolutely unacceptable and we need a real shakeup downtown. And so one other thing that I've thought long and hard about this, and I've been very active in my neighborhood, and we just had news that our property taxes due to what the state just passed for education would predict another $400 of regressive property taxes. The HOLA plan is outdated in the almost 2 years since they started. They haven't even been flexible on hardly any of the policies. I mean, the parking in the neighborhoods, they won't listen, we're just cut out of the dialogue. And in retrospect, as you review HOLA, we find the flaws: no infrastructure, no neighborhood voices, a lot of affordable housing that is not built within the site. If they hand it to the housing authority, it gets built down the road, takes longer, etc. Could be more expensive too. So we need a shakeup. Thank you. And my question is, do you agree with me?
When I do town halls, I would say you don't have to ask a question. If you just want to tell me something so that I hear you, that's cool. And I hated town halls when I first started doing them because it's really hard to get challenged and not feel like you have the answers, and you don't always have all the answers. And over time, I grew to really like them because I really like getting out of City Hall and, kind of the consultant and lobbyist and, political class. I like hearing, I far prefer going out and talking to people. I will say, though, that, and one of the reasons I liked them was because oftentimes the discussion in the room would reveal that there were differences within the community itself. One of the lessons I learned, for example, in Lake City, I had inadvertently, we opened up Fire Station 39 in Lake City as a homeless shelter. And yeah, there were people that really supported that, but there were also a lot of people in the neighborhood that felt like, man, you just did that without even talking to us. And inadvertently, were contributing to division within the community. We ended up launching, like a year later, finally, it got through my thick head what we were doing that was wrong, even though we were trying to help the homeless. And we started a Lake City planning process that brought all these folks together to start talking about what they needed. So I guess the point I'm saying is that discussion might bring in voices that disagree with you, and disagree with me, and disagree with others, but it's always a more productive discussion than when it feels like it's top down. So that's what I would try to do.
So open Bertha room every week. It's very simple.
Hi, Mike. Jan Rucker from the LinkedIn Springs neighborhood. I have a question to you about preserving existing multifamily housing, such as shuttered motels. How can we activate the spaces that are already there as the shortest possible fix?
Yeah, and this goes to the question about how does the city get deeper into the publicly owned housing space and realm than we are, right? I mean, if you look at some European cities, like big percentages of the housing are actually owned by the city, and you can rent control that, right? Because you own it. But it takes a lot of resources to do it. So one of the things I would like to do is work to put together a plan of, if we were going to go there, one, how do we pay for it? And as I said, I think we have some resources to start doing that. And then how do you implement? People talk a lot about we have city land that's available. We probably have some, but maybe not as much as we want. But could we just use eminent domain to buy, properties and start running them ourselves? I think that's something that definitely should be on the table. If we have the resources. Yeah, right, and the housing levy kind of is, divided up certain ways, but let's get just deeper into it, and it doesn't always have to be very low-income housing, too. Like, if we can start owning and running housing that the rents would help pay for a fair bit of the cost, supplemented by tax funds on the companies that are doing so well, maybe there's a pathway for us to really expand. It would take time, but I think now's the time to start, and trying to buy properties that are available or that are, currently affordable, that could be maintained that way into the future. I think that's something that type of resource would be great for.
asking for myself. It's August 4th. The primary's over.
Yeah.
Nikita Oliver and Jenny Durkin get through the primary. John Grant and Teresa Mosqueda get through the primary. Are you going to endorse anybody and who?
Oh, I think I've answered this question already. You know, I would definitely, I don't want to sound mean or anything, but you know, we see who's running this city. I'd support anyone against Jenny. I really would. I really would. I really would. And actually, I have a lot of respect. I have a ton of respect for Nikita. Let's just be very clear about that. Of course, as an individual. But the other thing is, you know, 4 or 8 years ago, we wouldn't have had that type of voice in a mayor's race. It shows how much politics is moving in the city. And regardless of what happens in the primary, the values she represents, the people she's representing, need to be heard moving forward. Period. And I know they will be, and maybe it's through Nikita, maybe it'll be through other leaders, but things have changed. Things have been changing over the last 8 years since I first took office. And this is one of the areas that has changed, and that needs to be a part of the debate, win or lose.
Well, thank you very much for that. How about position A?
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I go both ways on that one, to be honest with you. I like both of them. I supported John in the last election. I've met Teresa, and I like Teresa quite a bit too. So I don't know if I'd weigh in on that one in the general. And certainly if I was in it, I'm not weighing in on any city council race, because I don't need to, you know, I don't need to have council members if I win. I don't
Sorry
council members angry at me for when I
sorry to interrupt you, but.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, John.
Yeah, we got 2-minute close.
Okay.
So, go for it.
Okay, you can shorten my close if you want. You know, that property, I mentioned that property tax was one of the things that just got me involved, right? It was like it just came right without any public input whatsoever. You know, they weren't even going to go to council. Like, that was one of the things that really got me, like, getting involved, like, really thinking about getting in. I'd been thinking about it for a few months before that. One of the things, it was that mismanagement that drove me. And you know, what drove me when I first ran for office was I didn't feel like neighbors were being listened to. I didn't think anybody was taking climate seriously, you know, and I still believe that. Then I got into office, and I realized that the way I felt as a neighborhood person and as an environmental advocate was the way the low-income service workers felt. It was the way communities of colors felt. It was the way immigrant and refugees felt. Like they were not being listened to. And I worked hard to develop a coalition that was composed of those folks. And I ran into some pretty significant institutional power. And I am older, I'm wiser, I've learned a few lessons, I think I'm a little mellower, you know, about the whole thing. I got into this race, this city is so divided. There's so much tension and anger in this city, far more than I felt in 09 or 13. And that really troubles me, right? Because I love this city. You know, I've really dedicated myself to it. And I've raised my kids here. You know, they're Seattleites, and are they going to live here in the future? And the job of a mayor is to try to figure out a path forward. And I want to tell you, path forward is not, you know, saying, you know, if we feel like the city's being run for the wealthy, let's not keep doing it that way. Let's not keep putting them in charge. Let's figure out how we start working collectively together across income, across race, across neighborhood, and what we really believe the city ought to be. That's why I'm motivated to get in. I still believe it's. Thank you.
Bravo, bravo.